Welcome to our very first podcast. The Isabel and I'm Holly and this is Isabel. You may have seen her and I on our Slow Love Instagram. I'm the founder of Slow Love Knitwear and Isabel is my number 2. Basically, the podcast is going to be a lot of that. Doing a podcast is really adding a lot onto a plate that's already quite full, but actually we thought,
Fuck it,
yeah. And if we were at the beginning and somebody was sort of capturing their growth, I would find it so interesting. So we just thought it would be a great thing to share. We are also going to be chatting about like trending topics, current affairs.
That classic affairs.
And anything business related really, and then talking a little bit about the behind the scenes of what we're doing, and then just like your normal lols.
Bringing the ha-has.
Isabel's bringing the ha-has. She's unusually quiet today because she's nervous about the first podcast, aren't you?
This microphone's really...
We feel like a real
bit
boss.
clammy in the hands.
Clammy in the pits.
Yeah.
So we thought we were going to chat about our roles very briefly.
Yeah. I think that's a nice little...
And we also wanted to chat about how we came about, and actually the team within Slow Love Knitwear, because we are still quite a small team, but we are growing. We met each other. So when people have joined the team, I think they think that we have known each other for years, but actually there is almost a 10-year age gap. So we weren't at school. We did go to the same school, but we weren't at school at the same time. And I didn't know Isabel. Never met her, even though we must have crossed paths at some point.
Yeah, must have seen. I mean,
Isabel's worked literally
across the road.
Isabel's worked in every single establishment, pretty much. So
I get around me.
She does get around. But we actually met because Isabel had bought a jumper when it was just me and
Navy Feel Good.
She bought a Navy Feel Good.
I did.
And it was a really exciting week for me because Hilary Swank had also bought a Navy Feel Good that week.
God, I remember you told me that.
And I met you, and then Isabel had seen on Instagram that actually by total coincidence she realised that we worked in the same town. So she'd messaged to say, could she? She slid into my DMs and asked to come and pick up the jumper in person.
Yeah.
And I was pumped because she was like the 4th person to have bought one that week, which was a huge deal for me at the time. Yeah. That's how we met.
Holly's obsessed with me.
But we basically ended up chatting, and then we went out for coffee a few times. And then when I realised that the business, I desperately needed somebody to help me with a lot of the integral parts of the business, like bookkeeping and accounting and VAT and tax. I needed somebody that was going to be quite tenacious, and Isabel definitely fit that bill for me, and I'd spent some time with her, so I knew what you were like before,
and that we'd ultimately get on.
Yes.
Yeah, we have got very similar sense of humour, which is lucky.
It is very lucky.
It's very lucky. I actually do remember thinking, I remember being like, not intimidated is the wrong word because you're not intimidating in like a scary negative way. But I remember being like, oh God, I really need to tone down like the weirdness and my sense of humour because it's not for everyone. And it's actually just been the nicest and easiest working relationship in my life. And I always say, it doesn't really ever feel like work.
Oh
no, look at me.
Well, that's so, it doesn't
brown noser.
It doesn't feel like work, but also.
But we all work really hard.
We all work.
It's a jolly, but it's like I can't remember the last time I got Sunday Scary. I actually like working. I remember having children. I remember being younger and knowing I'd want children. I honestly thought I could be a stay-at-home mum, and I think stay-at-home mums are amazing, and it is such a hard job. But I remember having the children and being like, I couldn't do this. I don't think I realised how much I really loved working until I had children. And working, obviously in a job that I love, definitely makes me a better parent. But yeah, I do love working.
But I think also within for the brand, I think what works really well is because we're so small and we starting from nothing, and Isabel, you having to deal with a lot of the financials and being the go-to for the accountant, there's always had to be a real sort of openness with our dialogue.
Yeah.
So I think that's always just worked really. I mean, as we get bigger, I don't know how we will manage. We all work in the same room, so obviously there are now points of conversation that have to be private between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
But that's worked from my point of view. I feel like that has worked really well, and where we've maybe got into sort of slightly sticky cash flow situations, or things have sort of not been timed very well because we're still learning. That openness has made it really easy to get dealt with quickly.
Yeah, I also think that it's so being able to make those kinds of decisions not on your own. I can't imagine. I can imagine it. It is obviously going to be much easier when you can kind of share even though the financials are all on Holly's shoulders because this is 100% her business. It's being able to share those problems without any, like, with no holes barred, is definitely such a key thing, I think, to growth,
and just the transparency, I guess, for everybody. So even if it just means that you know if there's going to be a hurdle, and I'm prepared. I think just watching how some people have dealt with it before in my past jobs. Sticking your head in the sand really, really doesn't ever end well. So that has been great, especially within our dynamic.
Yeah. So 1 minute we're absolutely pissing ourselves laughing, and the next minute we're going, shit! How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? We've got to quickly do this. We've got to quickly do that. Last year there was a lot of wading through what felt like treacle, but another year of refining.
The intense growth, which is a good problem to have, but it does still then present problems.
Yeah.
So Abby's producing for the first time. And Abby's been also part of the brand since the very beginning, so she knows how to manage us. But we are also, as part of our podcast episodes, we are going to do a little game that Isabel and I like to play. Our version of this game is beyond X-rated, so we don't want to get cancelled, but we are still going to bring it. Yeah. So we are going to, each episode we're going to play a little game of Would You Rather.
Yeah.
Go on, you kick us off now.
I'll kick us off. So, would you rather... I feel like... So, the would you rather... for this week was going to be, would you rather send a dirty text to your boss or your
parents?
But you don't have a boss, and I feel like because of my Holly sense of humour, your boss.
I actually have done this.
Yeah.
I did send a dirty text.
So would you rather type a dirty text for your husband's eyes only, but send it to your parents or your in-laws?
I think it would probably be, I don't know. I actually think my mother-in-law probably would find it funny.
Oh God.
Whereas I think my mum would die. It would be too cringe. And my dad also probably quite cringe, even though I have done it before. But it was when texting was
you sent a dirty text to your dad?
Yeah.
Oh God, what?
But this was I can't remember. No, I can't.
Oh,
it was so long ago. This is really showing my age. It was when texting was just starting to be a thing.
Did you have Nokia 3310?
Yeah, it was literally. I think it was even before that. I had an orange mobile brick, and I sent it, and I'd abbreviated it so much it was like Morse code to him.
Oh, thank God.
I know. It was awful. It was like I was just. I've just started to rewatch Succession, and I watched the episode last night where Roman sends a dick pic to his dad in a massive board meeting, and it's that moment. It's that moment when you send it and you realise you sent it. You haven't sent it to the person you thought. And it's that sick rising.
I've never sent a text message. I've had the feeling of like, oh my God, have I said that's the wrong person, but I've never actually done it. I've been in the presence of someone who's done it, but
I mean, it can be so much worse. I actually would prefer to send a dirty text than it be like complaining about something and sending it to the wrong person, or
at
the
least
person
the
that
text
you're
is ultimately tongue in cheek rather than being like, I hate this person, or I'm thinking about firing Isabel next week, give me your thoughts on it, and then actually sending it to me.
you, yeah.
That
You'd be like, oh no,
that'd be rubbish. I think my answer would be, the thing is if I could choose
your mum
what
would love
parent, Helen would just roll her eyes and just be like, oh, it's just another normal day with Isabel. My dad, I think weirdly, I would feel the worst sending it to my dad. My in-laws, I'd be like, well, you know.
Would they know what it is, do you think?
Yeah. So to conclude, I think I would rather send. I think I'd rather send a dirty text message to my parents.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad's also a Neanderthal, so he turns his phone off at 4 o'clock.
Does he?
Yeah, he still has a tiny little like.
Do they still have a landline?
£5. They still have a landline. My mum is all savvy with a flashy phone.
Is she that savvy?
I mean,
Helen has followed me about 20 times on Instagram.
Yeah, mum is a serial accidental unfollower and follower. So it's quite funny at the desk. Holly will be like, "Oh, Helen Walker started following us for the 8th time this week." I don't know how she does it, but from like a phone perspective, yeah, no, dad has got a little burner phone. So from like a job role perspective, like what does your general day-to-day look like?
The accountant asked me that in our last end of year. He was like, what do you actually do? And I was like, I feel like if I say it to you on like a normal day, it probably doesn't sound that thrilling, because I tend to do loads of my actual admin on the weekend where I can just go through it, whereas I'm very aware that in the working day I need to be like on hand for everybody.
But also you are very much like the creative director, aren't you? So there's probably a constant subconscious like what's next, I need to refine this.
I definitely think that's something that I've noticed. It was something that I was really aware of when I started, and I think it's mistakes that I have seen happen with other businesses is where you're the founder and you're wanting to lead, you don't want to put your head down and get lost in the sort of the workings. Also, everybody here has got such clearly defined job roles.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody knows what they're doing, whereas I have to keep my head up and, like you say, just always plan for what's happening in the next year and really where we want to go. So there are still things that, like, for instance, we need to be working on next week, which we've not really started to work on, like which I know you started with one of them, but there's just things like that somebody always has to be looking out ahead, whereas when I first started, the majority of my time was spent sort of packing or like panicking that a delivery wasn't going to come, and dealing with customer service was really probably the most time consuming thing for me.
Yeah. You've definitely got, now the team has grown where there are aspects of the business that you ultimately are still making final decisions on, but you're not performing the day-to-day of those roles. But if there are big decisions to be made in any of the like lanes of the business that we're all working in, there are still those kind of final decision elements that do come down to you. But my day-to-day, it's really varied. It's really varied. I think I remember when I when we were writing like my official job role, and it's really hard to give it a title. I think we came up with sort of head of operations at the end, because operations can cover such a huge span of things. So it's the finance stuff, so kind of main point of contact with the accountants, keeping Holly constantly abreast of kind of big financial milestones throughout the year, keeping her informed with where we currently stand with quarterly
cash flow
management, projections for like reordering, so sales reporting, what we're low on, what we need to reorder, and actually logistics. And it is quite nice because there are some crossovers into some more creative sides of the business.
And you are such a creative person as well, so it is nice that you bring that.
Yeah.
Isabel, every day, Isabel comes into the office, and it's whether you've had no sleep with the kids or whatever, you always come in, and Isabel will always have made an effort for herself, not for anyone else, and it always makes me smile. And that's what she's like, but actually she also just absolutely loves a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And she's the only person I've ever met who will literally hound HMRC. And HMRC is...
I actually love being on the phone to
I know
HMRC.
you do, but I'm saying this because it used to fill me with dread, and I know for a fact that I am not the only person in the world that HMRC, just seeing that brown envelope makes you fully shit yourself. Whereas Isabel, she will literally hound them to find things out or see where we are with something, and it's that is everything I needed, and I will always need that. I need somebody who's like, oh, let's just sort this shit out right now, and then you're like, the more it scares you, you're like, let's just deal with it. And you are definitely
I do like
you
that.
are the ultimate problem solver. That is your personality, which is so amazing for me, because I'm not about the details. I'm like, growth mindset. Let's just go for it. Let's keep moving, and we'll work it out as we go along. And then Abby's quite similar. You're a mixture actually, and Abby's like super organised.
Well, actually, do you know what? I think everybody in the business, and I know you'll say I'm not organised, but you are, not in like a spreadsheet kind of way, but in a, when it comes down to it, you know what needs to be done. It's just in your head.
Yeah. But
you're never behind on anything in the business. Basically, you know what needs to be done. Even if I think like the treehouse thing is a perfect example, because it was a local location. You actually did all of the organisation of the treehouse.
Yeah.
That wasn't that, and you knew what you wanted 3, 4, 5 months before the actual launch of the product. You had kind of organised it all in your head months before it even happened. So in a very creative director way, you are super organised. But actually, I think that is one of the key reasons why Slow Love it works so well, is because everybody is so organised in their lane. Yeah.
And there's the trust that everybody does their job so well. I think is just.
Yeah.
I hope as we carry on going that this is always going to be a consistent.
What's your favourite part of your day today? Other than seeing me?
Other than seeing you guys.
Yeah.
The favourite parts are the product selling and the feedback we get.
Because a review, actually, I feel like when people leave a review, they're probably like, oh, do people even read reviews? We actually love getting reviews. It's so nice. It is so nice.
I think also where we're so, it's the actual product, even though it's like the block of the jumper, the shape of the jumper, for example, it feels like it's quite a simple thing. It's like the little details that take us a long time and sometimes can be a really painful and annoying process for everyone. To get those details right, the fact that we then get the reviews and people talk about those details, it's like the ultimate.
They're not being missed.
Yeah, it's the ultimate job satisfaction for me. Yeah. And when we unpack the final sort of this final sign off of the samples, and even actually seeing you. So our spring summer, Isabel wasn't sure about one of our products, and it's a completely new thing for us. And it's quite a risk, and you weren't convinced at all. And then the last
I love
fit
it, but
session,
you didn't love it on me. I love.
But the last fit session we had, and you tried it on, you loved it, and you looked chic as fuck in it.
Yeah, I did really like it. Oh, look at me.
I know.
My favourite part of my job is I love my job, but I've never done what I do now in a creative environment, and Slow Love basically ticks totally both sides of my brain, which is I love getting into the nitty gritty detail of like business.
Yeah.
But I am a creative at heart.
We also just like a really good example of how we're both aligned with this, like for the first like sort of year and a half where we were growing at such an insane pace, it was really nerve-wracking because we didn't have like data history for us to look back on and make decisions to do with some things based off past performance and like yearly data, but we have that now, even though it's only been 3 years. We have that, and we can look at it, and we both absolutely love that, as does Abby actually.
Well, sorry, go on.
On a weekend, like I sent you that little summary of like where we are at the moment, year to date, and there was some figures in there that were really surprising, and I was like, oh, this is amazing to actually see where this is. We haven't lost that money there because of this. And I'll send it to Isabel. Isabel's got young kids and it's her weekend, but I know that she'll just love seeing it as much as I do.
And actually, when I'm putting the children to bed, are quite often, as they're drifting off to sleep, this is going to sound so lame, but are quite often like, run some reports on Shopify on my phone. And they'll be like the really niche ones that I don't do in my day to day, like sales reporting or looking at what SKUs have performed the best in a quarter or whatever. But like the really niche ones, like return customer rates or something like that, and yeah, we do. That's a quite nice thing. Our WhatsApp history of conversation is incredibly varied.
Yeah,
that we do share quite a lot of nice little Shopify reports. Cool. Anyway, I'm super excited for this podcast. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, guys.
And this was our intro. Yeah, this was our intro. And the upcoming episodes will be way more structured.
Yeah.